Hello there. We're glad to have you join us on NAPTIP On The Move. I'm Angela Adwegi. Welcome. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act was passed into law in 2015. What are the provisions and penalties of this piece of legislation? You'll be enlightened if you stay with NAPTIP On The Move.
Passed into law in 2015, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act forbids all forms of violence against persons in private and public life, provides maximum protection and effective remedies for victims and punishment for offenders.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is Nigeria's most revolutionary gender-responsive law. And I say that because it is very progressive, it is very proactive, and it covers a lot of issues, current issues that wasn't covered in the criminal code or the penal code. It is a beautiful piece of legislation that every person should acquit themselves with. So when we hear about violence against persons, of course, you know, the first inclination is women and girls. No, even men and boys go through, you know, violence as well. So it is something that everyone, women, children, men, should acquaint themselves with.
The Vapp law covers various forms of violence.
There are many provisions in the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Such provisions include provision against rape. The Section 1 of the Act prohibits rape, and the punishment, the maximum punishment, is that of life imprisonment. And in cases of children below 14 years imprisonment, and in other cases, a minimum of 12 years imprisonment. There's also the case of stalking. You know, with the evolvement of the society, the different kinds of crime emerge. Stalking is one of them, and stalking has been also criminalized in the Act. There's that one of forceful ejection from a building by the spouse. There's that one of forced economic dependence of a spouse. There's provisions prohibiting inflicting injuries on a person. The Vapp Act also provides against harmful traditional practices, and even that against harmful widowhood practices in the society. And you have to know that in the society, most of these violations are against women. They are gender-based, and also against the vulnerables in the society. These are some of the provisions that the Violence Against Persons Act have instituted to make sure that we eliminate violence to a barest minimum in the society, at least to offer protection to women and to the vulnerables in the society, to the children also. Almost everybody in the society is captured under the Act.
NAPTIP has the legislative backing to implement the Vapp law.
NAPTIP has been given the authority to administer the law under Section 44 of the Act. And we are to administer the law in collaboration with our stakeholders and other faith-based organizations. We have the prosecutorial powers, we have the administrative powers, we have the regulatory powers. Under the prosecutorial powers, NAPTIP has the authority and the mandate to investigate and to prosecute people who have violated the Act. Also, NAPTIP uses its prosecutorial powers to punish offenders and uses the administrative and regulatory powers to protect and safeguard the victims and also provide them with effective remedies. First of all, we do public enlightenment. We sensitize people against violence. We sensitize people to know that they have a right to say no to violence, and if violence is meted against them, that they have a place they can run to for justice. NAPTIP is there to fight for the rights of its citizens against violence. Secondly, NAPTIP also has provisions in the Act to make for some protective orders, like the protection order provided in Section 38 of the Act, where somebody that is threatened with violence can run to the courts. You can just apply and make an affidavit to the court, and the judge will grant you protection order. And that protection order is effective all over the Federation.
Interestingly, the Vapp Act also envisaged the convoluted task of coordination, which is why it now requires core agencies that have a role to play in implementing the Act to come together and collaborate with NAPTIP in the implementation of the Vapp Act in the FCT. And all these core agencies were now invited to join what we call the high-level multi-agency task team, which is called HIMAT for short. So it's basically a multi-agency platform comprising of all core referral agencies like the police. We have the NSCDC, which is the civil defense. We have the Federal Ministry of Women's Affairs. We have the National Center of Women Development, National Human Rights Commission, NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, EFCC, and NIPSI, Correctional Services, and also the Judiciary. And the HIMAT members, which is what they are called, have their roles, specifically cut out for them by their institutional mandate. In the same token, we have Section 40, subsection 1 of the Vapp Act, which provides for the registration of organizations as service providers, and whose aim is protecting the rights and interests of victims of violence by any lawful means. NAPTIP is expected to keep a record of all these accredited service providers and circulate SIM at police stations and amongst protection officers, so that when victims or survivors of sexual and gender-based violence access these referral points, they know where to go to. Another platform was established called the Service Provider Accountability Resource Committee, called the SPAC, with members drawn from the various service provider community. So essentially, the SPAC is expected to amplify the National Sex Offenders Database and also encourage other service providers to apply and register on the National Sex Offenders Register. And the Vapp Act also provides that every victim of violence is entitled to receive comprehensive medical, psychological, social, and legal assistance through either government agencies or non-government agencies that provide such assistance. And these services are currently being provided by sexual assault referral centers. And right now we have about 32 sexual assault referral centers across 18 states in Nigeria, including the FCT.
To ensure effective implementation of the Vapp law, NAPTIP created a department to oversee Vapp cases.
So this past June, a Violence Against Persons Prohibition Department was created in NAPTIP. And when I assumed office, I now appointed a Vapp coordinator. Another step I took was to deploy the Rapid Response Squad here in NAPTIP to my office, so they report directly to me, thereby cutting out any bottleneck that will reduce the traction of their work. So basically, the Rapid Response Squad is responsible for timely rescue of victims. And also, the Section 41 of the Vapp Act stipulates that protection officers are to be appointed in each area council to assist the court in discharging its duties under the Act, as well as coordinate the activities of the police and service providers.
Chinenye Edeoga is the Vapp coordinator in NAPTIP.
Vapp coordinator actually, in line with the law, coordinates the presentation of the annual Vapp report. It's a report that's an accountability report that spells out what every stakeholder has been doing or has done in a year, throughout the year. And when we collate the information, put it together, we're supposed to deposit the reports before the Statistician General. The first of its kind, last year we launched the annual Vapp report, and we've already kick-started plans on how to gather activities of what happened last year to see if we can beat the target this year.
As stipulated by the Vapp law, NAPTIP manages the Sexual Offenders Database.
Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act provides for the Sexual Offenders Database, a National Sex Offenders Database. In that database, people who are convicted of rape or sex-related offenses are captured, and they are made, their faces and their identity are made public for people to know. Then there is the back end where people who are still in the process of prosecution or investigation are also captured. That provision is to deter future violators from committing the crime, because they know that if they commit the crime, they will be exposed, they will be named, and they will be shamed.
Penalties for the violations of the provisions in the Vapp Act include:
Under the Vapp Act, the penalty for various offenses range from life imprisonment to imprisonment without the option of fine, then imprisonment with the option of fine, then also imprisonment and fine. Where a person performs female genital mutilation, the person is liable to imprisonment of not more than 4 years or a fine not exceeding 200,000 naira or both. Then for forceful ejection from home, we'll have incidences where women are pushed out of their homes by their husbands. We will have a few incidences where husbands are even pushed out of the home by their wives. So that offender is liable to imprisonment of no more than 2 years or fine not exceeding 300,000 naira or both. Then for forced financial dependence or economic abuse, these are instances where the spouse refuses to provide the necessary funds for the wife, or when they use it as a form of control. So the offender is liable to no more than 2 years or fine not exceeding 500,000 naira, 500,000 or both. Then we also have instances of forced isolation or separation from family and friends, and the offender is liable to 6 months in imprisonment. We also have cases like emotional, verbal or psychological abuse, damage to property, to cause distress or annoy the victim. You have instances where a husband and wife will quarrel, then the wife will just go on a destruction rampage where she will destroy everything in the home, destroy the man's vehicle. So that in itself is an offense, and the offender is liable to imprisonment of not more than 2 years. Then the Vapp Act also covers harmful widowhood practices, then also harmful traditional practices like disinheriting a woman from inheriting her late husband's property or her late father's property just because she's a woman. Also forced marriage, then female genital mutilation. Then abandonment of spouse, children or other dependents without sustenance. The offender is liable to imprisonment of not more than 3 years or a fine not exceeding £500,000 naira or both.
The Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Programme, ROLAC, funded by the European Union and implemented by the British Council, is one of NAPTIP's major partners. The partnership has informed the establishment of the Sexual Offenders Database, acquisition of the NAPTIP shortcode 627, training of social protection officers, and more. The Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Response Team of the Federal Capital Territory also collaborates with NAPTIP.
When you talk about the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, we collaborate with NAPTIP because they are the mandate government agency that enforces the law. When we get reports of domestic violence, people child abuse, people maltreating their children, perpetrating all kinds of different violence, different degrees of violence to them, we will do our own part by counseling and making sure that we interview the survivor. Then we refer to NAPTIP because we feel that NAPTIP, since they have the mandate to implement these laws, we feel that the survivors will get justice. We also had trainings with the protection officers in FCT, in the 6 area councils. Those protection officers, we collaborated with NAPTIP to make sure that those people were trained. Working with NAPTIP has been a very good one for us because handling cases of violence in FCT and domestic violence, to be specific, people feel that nothing will happen. If you report cases of domestic violence or any form of violence, we refer to NAPTIP because with that, the survivors and even the perpetrator will be called upon to come. Some are being locked up to get people that will bail them. Some are being charged to court. When they are being prosecuted, they go back to tell others that is not the business of the day anymore because people are getting justice.
The culture of silence is one of the impediments affecting prosecution of violators.
Our people are always afraid and ashamed to report cases of rape or sex-related offenses. The fear of stigmatization, that people will know what happened to them, it holds them and in its grip, so they are not ready to share or even report the crime. So most of the time, even when it is reported, they feel reluctant to testify against their violator. So this is one of the major challenges that the agency is facing.
We have the issue of SAC, Sexual Assault Referral Centers. In FCT today, we only have one SAC in FCT, and it's sited in Buhari. FCT is big, and FCT has 6 area councils. So imagine a situation whereby someone all the way from Wuse has a report of a sexual abuse. For the person to go get medical attention, we have to travel all the way to Buhari. Something that the system government should look into and see how we can replicate the SAC in Buhari in all the area council for ease of delivery on this job.
NAPTIP has a word for women and the public.
Number one advice I have for women is they should speak up. no matter what, they should speak up. NAPTIP has a slogan: if you see something, say something. Women should try as much as possible to speak up. When you speak up, at times, most times, not at times, there is this, you've kind of had like a psychological healing. You've spoken up. And definitely 1 or 2 persons or even the agency can come to your rescue. I encourage women to look for or find a way of getting financial independence.
The public are also advised not to be sentimental in cases regarding rape, because sometimes you hear people say, it is because of the dress she's wearing. Why did she have to go out with the man? The way she's dressed. All those kind of sentimental judgments gives the perpetrators the energy, fuels their energy to commit the crime. These are ethical issues which NAPTIP is grappling with. And we believe through sensitization, people will understand that rape is a crime and that nothing justifies the offense of rape and other sex-related offenses.
Just report. I know some people might not want to report immediately, but no matter how long it takes, just know that there are people willing to listen without judging you, and there are systems that have been put in place to protect you and ensure that you get justice.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law is efficiently and effectively being implemented by NAPTIP and its stakeholders. This piece of legislation is one of Nigeria's regulations to protect human rights.
Our update segment will be on shortly. Keep watching. The Open Society Initiative for West Africa, OSIWA, led by the Executive Director Ibrahim Aidara, paid a courtesy visit to the Director General of NAPTIP, Dr. Fatima Waziri Azi. Stating the purpose of the visit, Ibrahim Aidara informed the Director General that the organization had changed its name to Open Society Foundation and highlighted recent efforts so far. In her response, Dr. Fatima Waziri Azi assured the team of NAPTIP's collaboration and stressed the need for the foundation to step up its awareness campaign to enlighten the public on emerging trends in human trafficking. A federal high court in Katsina has sentenced a 21-year-old man, Uzairu Mutala, to 1 year imprisonment without the option of a fine for attempting to secure the illegal entry of a female victim via Babam Mutum border to Libya through Niger Republic, an offense contrary to Section 29 and punishable under Section 26(1, Trafficking in Persons Act. Envoys from the Women Leadership Institute, WLI Nigeria, led by the project manager, Lola Oyebamiji, paid a courtesy call on the Director General of NAPTIP, Dr. Fatima Waziri Azi, at her office in Abuja. The Women Leadership Institute, WLI, is an international leadership development organization mandated to spring forth a future of shared prosperity for African women by empowering and equipping them with leadership knowledge, skills, competence, confidence, and values that will enhance their capacity to make meaningful contributions to the socio-economic and political transformation of Africa. WLI's visit is aimed at creating a good working relationship and establishing a roadmap for both organizations to collaborate and partner in assisting and empowering potential victims of human trafficking. The Victim Story segment, as usual, is up next. Don't go away.
15 years old. I'm from Imo State. My dad is in the village. Then I don't know where my mom is. When I was in my village, my dad take me to Umuahia. Then my auntie in Umuahia take me to Abuja here. So I will stay with my auntie that's in Abuja. So my auntie gave birth. I'm the one taking care of her baby. I drank water in the fridge, so I slept off. So in the morning, I don't know as in where I slept, the clothes that I wear is not the clothes that I use and sleep. My auntie was not around that day. So the following day, my uncle came inside the room and forced me. He was threatening me if I didn't do it, he's going to pursue me from the house. He's going to beat me. So in the night, if I'm sleeping, my uncle forcing me to sleep with me. So when they called him on Sunday to come, there's a girl also too in our house that he did the same thing to. So they tell him to come in area 10. So a lawyer there started asking him question about the other girl that was living with them. So he was saying that the girl have run away, go to their house. So they said, why did they bring me again, a girl in the house? So he was saying that it's not his sister, it's his wife's sister. She's taking care of her baby. So they called me, tell my uncle to leave the office. So they are asking me, is my uncle maltreating me? I say no. Is he sleeping with me? I say yes. So they asked my uncle denied that it's not him before they bring me in NAPTIP here. So before NAPTIP, it's my neighbor that helped me. So they brought me here. Since I've been here, they have been taking care of me. They said they're going to take me to school. I've been here 3 months. So I want to tell NAPTIP to try and rescue others that is outside looking for help. Let them help us also here.
We can go on, but time will not permit. Join us again same time next week when we bring you another informative episode of NAPTIP On The Move. My name is Angela Adwegi. Thank you for watching and bye for now.